A cold wind swept through the bustling city streets. As a young boy, no older than 12, sat on the curb, hugging his tattered jacket around himself. His name was Liam. His clothes were worn, his shoes barely holding together, and his face carried the exhaustion of someone who had seen far too much struggle for his age. Yet, despite everything, his eyes still held a quiet determination, an ember of hope that refused to be extinguished. Liam had spent most of his life on the streets, surviving on scraps, doing odd jobs, and sometimes relying on the kindness of strangers. But kindness was rare in a world that barely noticed him. People walked past him every day, too busy with their own lives to care about a boy with nothing. He had learned not to expect much from anyone. That was, until one evening when something completely unexpected happened. A sleek black limousine pulled up near the alley where Liam often sat. The car was polished to perfection, reflecting the city lights like a mirror. The door swung open, and out stepped a man who looked like he belonged to a different world. He was tall, dressed in an expensive suit, and exuded the confidence of someone who had never known struggle. His name was Victor Lancaster, a millionaire known for his extravagance, lifestyle, and ruthless business tactics. But tonight, he wasn't here on business. He had something else in mind. Victor looked down at Liam with a smirk, his sharp eyes scanning the boy from head to toe. "You there?" he called out, his voice smooth, but laced with condescension. "How would you like to attend the most exclusive party in the city tonight?" Liam blinked in confusion. Was this man serious? No one had ever invited him anywhere, let alone to a party filled with wealthy and important people. He wasn't sure if this was some kind of joke, but something about the way Victor spoke made him uneasy. Still, the idea of a warm place, good food, and a few hours away from the harsh streets was too tempting to ignore. "Why?" Liam finally asked, wary but curious. Victor chuckled, as if amused by the question. "Let's just say I want to do a little charity work," he replied. "Consider it an opportunity. Who knows? Maybe you'll learn something valuable." Liam didn't trust him. Something about the man's smile felt off, but hunger gnawed at his stomach, and the cold air was seeping into his bones. Against his better judgment, he nodded. "Okay." Without another word, Victor gestured to his driver, who opened the limousine door for Liam. Hesitantly, the boy climbed in, sinking into the luxurious leather seats that felt foreign against his worn-out clothes. The warmth inside the car was almost overwhelming, making him realize just how cold he had been. As they drove through the city, Liam watched the buildings blur past the window, his fingers gripping the edge of his seat. He had no idea what he was walking into, but something told him that this night would be unlike any other. Meanwhile, in the grand ballroom of Victor Lancaster's estate, the city's elite were gathered in their finest attire. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting golden light over tables adorned with crystal glasses and lavish dishes. Laughter and conversation filled the air as wealthy guests mingled, exchanging stories of their latest business ventures and extravagant vacations. Among them was Evelyn Moore, a woman known not only for her beauty, but for her sharp intellect and kindness, qualities that often set her apart from the rest of Victor's social circle. She had grown up in privilege, but unlike many in the room, she understood that wealth did not define a person's worth. And when she saw Victor walk in with a boy who clearly didn't belong, her interest was immediately piqued. The moment Liam stepped inside, all eyes turned toward him. The room fell into an uneasy silence, whispers spreading like wildfire. His ragged appearance stood in stark contrast to the polished elegance of the guests. He could feel their stares burning into him. the weight of their judgment pressing down. Victor placed a firm hand on Liam's shoulder, guiding him forward with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying through the room, "tonight, I bring you a guest unlike any other. A true example of what life looks like when you have nothing." Liam's stomach twisted. He finally understood. This wasn't an act of kindness. It was a spectacle, a cruel joke at his expense. Some guests chuckled. Others looked on with mild curiosity, but Evelyn's expression darkened. She could see it clearly. Victor had no intention of helping this boy. He had brought him here for one reason: to humiliate him. But what Victor didn't realize was that the night was far from over, and before it ended, everyone in that room would witness something they never expected. Liam's hands curled into fists at his sides, his stomach twisting with unease. The way Victor spoke about him, like he was nothing more than an object to be gawked at, made his skin crawl. He could hear the quiet snickers from some guests, the murmured comments exchanged behind their champagne glasses. His cheeks burned, not from embarrassment, but from anger. Victor led him further into the room, his grip firm on Liam's shoulder. Now, don't be shy," he said, his tone dripping with mock encouragement. "Tell everyone, how does it feel to be standing here, surrounded by people who have everything you don't?" Liam swallowed hard, his throat dry. Every instinct screamed at him to turn and run, to get out of this place before the humiliation got worse. But something inside him refused to move. He had spent too many years feeling invisible, too many nights wondering if the world even cared, whether he existed. Now, for the first time, people were looking at him, and he wasn't about to let them define him as some pitiful street rat. Before he could answer, Evelyn stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Victor, what exactly are you trying to prove here?" she asked, folding her arms. Her voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable sharpness to it. Victor's smirk didn't waver. "Oh, come on, Evelyn. I'm giving the boy an experience he'll never forget, a glimpse into a world he'll never have." He turned to the guests, his expression full of amusement. "Isn't that generous of me?" A few people chuckled, though some shifted uncomfortably. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She had known Victor for years, and while she was used to his arrogance, this was low, even for him. She glanced at Liam, noting the way his posture stiffened, how his knuckles turned white from clenching his fists. The boy was holding back, more than just words. Liam finally met Victor's gaze, his voice steady, despite the anger bubbling beneath. "You think this is funny?" he asked. "Parading me around like I'm some kind of joke?" Victor's smirk widened. "Oh, don't take it so personally, kid. Life's unfair. You, of all people, should know that." He gestured around the lavish room. This is a world built on success, power, and money, not charity cases." Liam's chest tightened. He had spent years surviving on nothing but his own instincts and determination. He had endured hunger, loneliness, and nights where he wasn't sure if he'd wake up the next morning. And yet, here was a man who had never known a day of struggle, looking down on him like he was less than human. Evelyn took a step closer to Liam, lowering her voice. "You don't have to stand here and take this," she said gently. But Liam shook his head. "No," he murmured. "I do." Something in his voice made Evelyn pause. There was no fear, no hesitation, just quiet defiance. Victor, sensing he had complete control of the situation, clapped his hands. "Well, since you're here, let's make the most of it. How about a little game?" He turned to the guests, his grin widening. "Who thinks the boy should try a little taste of luxury? Maybe something he'll never get again." A waiter stepped forward, holding a silver tray of appetizers. Delicate, expensive bites of food that Liam had only ever seen in shop windows. Victor picked up a small golden-crusted tart and held it out. "Go on," he taunted. "Try it. A once-in-a-lifetime meal." Liam looked at the tart, then at Victor. He knew what was happening. Victor wanted him to take it, to accept this handout so he could laugh about how easily a starving boy could be manipulated. But Liam wasn't stupid. He wasn't about to play into Victor's hands. Instead, he took a step back. "No, thanks." Victor blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me." Liam straightened his shoulders. "I don't need your food, and I don't need your pity." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Some guests exchanged glances, as if unsure how to react. Evelyn, however, felt the slightest smile tug at her lips. The boy wasn't just surviving, he had pride. Something that even the wealthiest people in the room couldn't buy. Victor's smirk faltered for the first time. He hadn't expected resistance. His entire game was built on the idea that Liam would be desperate enough to jump at anything. But now, in front of his audience, he was the one left standing there, looking foolish. Annoyed, he let out a cold chuckle. "Suit yourself," he said, tossing the tart back onto the tray. "But let's not pretend that pride fills an empty stomach." Liam's gaze didn't waver. "No, but dignity does." A ripple went through the crowd. A few people whispered among themselves, while others simply watched, intrigued. Evelyn, meanwhile, saw something shifting in the room. The power dynamic had changed. Liam wasn't the one being humiliated anymore. Victor was, and he knew it. Victor's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to losing control, especially not to a street kid. His fingers twitched at his sides as he searched for a way to turn the tables again. But before he could speak, another voice cut through the tension. "I think that's enough." Everyone turned. It was an older man, dressed in a tailored navy suit. His presence commanded attention, his voice firm but calm. His name was Charles Donovan, a highly respected businessman, whose words carried weight in this crowd. He stepped forward, looking directly at Victor. "You've made your point, whatever it was supposed to be. Now let the boy be." Victor hesitated. He wasn't the type to back down, but challenging Charles in front of everyone could do more harm than good to his reputation. So, instead, he forced a tight smile. "Of course, just having a little fun." But the mood had already shifted. People were no longer laughing. Some guests who had originally found the spectacle amusing now looked away, uncomfortable. A few even nodded at Liam, as if silently acknowledging his courage. Evelyn stepped beside Liam, offering him a quiet nod. "Come with me," she murmured. Liam hesitated for only a moment before following her. He didn't know who she was, but she had been the only one to stand up for him. And right now, that meant something. As they walked away, Victor watched them, his expression unreadable. But deep inside, something burned. He had set this night up to entertain himself, to prove a point about power and wealth, but instead, it was Liam who had stolen the attention. And that was something Victor Lancaster did not take lightly. The night wasn't over yet, and before it ended, Victor was determined to remind everyone exactly who held the real power in this room. Liam followed Evelyn through the grand ballroom, his heart still pounding from the confrontation. He didn't know exactly where she was taking him, but anywhere was better than standing under Victor's watchful gaze. The way the millionaire had looked at him before they left. It wasn't over. Liam could feel it. Evelyn led him to a quieter part of the estate, where the noise of laughter and clinking glasses faded. She turned to him, her expression softer now. "You handled yourself well back there," she said. Liam let out a small, tired laugh. Did I? Felt more like I was just trying not to lose it. She smiled. That's exactly why it mattered. Victor expected you to break. You didn't. Liam shrugged, unsure of what to say. He wasn't used to people recognizing his strength. Most barely noticed him at all. Before Evelyn could say more, the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps echoed through the hall. Liam tensed. He didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Victor. The millionaire stepped forward, his usual smirk replaced with something colder. Leaving so soon? He asked, his voice casual but laced with something unsettling. Evelyn straightened. I think Liam's had enough for tonight. Victor chuckled, shaking his head. You know, Evelyn, I admire your compassion. But let's not pretend that kindness changes reality. He turned his gaze to Liam. Studying him like a puzzle, he couldn't quite figure out. You think tonight was some kind of victory, don't you? Liam met his eyes, refusing to back down. I don't care about winning. I just won't be your entertainment. Victor's smirk twitched. Interesting. Then let's see how strong that pride of yours really is. He snapped his fingers, and suddenly, a waiter appeared, holding a crisp white envelope. Victor took it and held it out to Liam. Inside is $10,000. Yours if you take it. Liam frowned, staring at the envelope, but not reaching for it. Why? Victor's smirk returned. Call it a lesson. You can walk away right now with nothing and prove your little point about dignity. Or you can take this, change your life, and admit that money is what truly matters. Liam's breath caught. $10,000. It was more than he had ever imagined having. It could get him food, a place to stay, maybe even a fresh start. His fingers twitched at his sides. He wasn't going to lie to himself. He wanted it. He needed it. Evelyn, standing beside him, whispered, You don't have to prove anything to him. Liam's mind raced. He could take the money and walk away. No more hunger. No more nights curled up in the cold. But then he looked at Victor, saw the way the man was watching him, waiting for him to fold, to give in and prove that, in the end, everyone had a price. And that was when Liam realized something. Victor didn't care about the money. $10,000 meant nothing to a man like him. What he wanted was to see Liam surrender, to take away the one thing he had left, his dignity. Liam took a deep breath, then, with steady hands, reached for the envelope. Victor's smirk widened, but before he could gloat, Liam did something he never expected. He tore the envelope in half. The room fell into silence. The crisp sound of paper ripping echoed through the hall. The torn pieces fluttered to the ground, like snow falling at Victor's feet. Liam exhaled, his voice calm. I don't need your money, and I definitely don't need your approval. For the first time, Victor looked genuinely stunned. His expression flickered, just for a moment, before his smirk returned, though weaker than before. Fascinating, he murmured. You really are different. Liam didn't respond. He had nothing left to say. Evelyn's eyes shone with quiet admiration. She placed a gentle hand on Liam's shoulder. Let's go. This time, as they walked away, Victor didn't try to stop them. He simply stood there, watching as Liam left. Not beaten, not humiliated, but stronger than before. Outside, the night air was cold, but Liam felt lighter than he had in years. He turned to Evelyn. Why did you help me? She smiled. Because I know what it's like to feel like you don't belong, and because I believe people like you deserve more than the world gives them. Liam didn't know what his future held, but he knew one thing. He had walked into that party as just another street kid, a nobody in the eyes of the rich. But he was walking out as something more. Someone who refused to be defined by money, by power, by the expectations of people like Victor Lancaster. And that was worth more than $10,000. That was priceless.